Coming up on Mountain News at 6, after winning the seat for senator in the 29th district, we'll hear from Pineville Mayor Scott Maiden. And folks in one city in Rockcastle County are upset. We'll tell you why.
And temperatures today were in the upper 60s and low 70s, and we're going to continue the cool down. Details in a few minutes.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 6.
After a historic write-in election following the unexpected death of Senator Johnny Turner, voters decided on who would succeed him for the 29th Senate District seat. WYMT's Madison Carmouche caught up with the man Bell, Floyd, Harlan, Knott, and Letcher County voters chose as their next senator.
Pineville is going through changes, but not just aesthetically, as the mayor, Scott Maiden, is now the 29th District Senator-elect.
Never thought that 2 weeks later that I had run a 11-day campaign and been elected senator.
In the midst of the nearly $8 million construction chaos in the square, Maiden says he is not betraying his city.
And I understand people feeling that way because, you know, I'm sure you've seen downtown. We've got all the roads torn out and a lot of the sidewalks, and we're doing all that stuff. But you know, the good thing is I'm going to be here for 2 more months. I live here, and we've got a short session this time.
But with his new title, the Pineville City Council will appoint a council member to serve as mayor until the end of the term in 2026.
Just as a councilman, I think moving forward, we're a pretty strong council. I think we'll work together on whatever it takes to make the city a better place.
Maiden says his advice to his successor is to leave the city better than when they started.
That's the most important thing. You've got to have a seat at the table, and I think that's one advantage that I'll have as a state senator is my knowledge and some of the things that I'll have a seat at the table with.
He adds he will continue to be an asset not only to Pineville, but most importantly to the 29th District as a whole.
I think we have a bright future here in the mountains, and my cup's half full, it's not half empty.
In Bell County, Madison Carmouche, WYMT Mountain News.
Mayor Maiden will continue his duties as mayor of Pineville until he is sworn in as senator of the 29th District Senate seat in January 2025. He is also scheduled to be my next guest Monday night on Issues and Answers. Voters in Bell County cast their ballots for a new 44th Judicial Circuit Commonwealth's attorney on Tuesday. Republican Mike Taylor won by a large margin against Democratic opponent Jesse Jean Moberg. Taylor beat out the incumbent Lisa Fugit in the May primary. Taylor won the county with more than 69% of the vote. He says it's now time to get to work solving issues of overcrowding in the detention center.
The cases are going to move, and if they don't move, they're going to have jury trials, and we're going to have either acquittals or convictions, but one way or the other, we're going to get this mess cleaned up, and we're going to do it quickly.
Taylor won the election despite longtime Commonwealth's attorney and Republican Karen Green Blondell endorsing Moberg. Kentuckians voted no on Amendment 2, one of the constitutional amendments that was on the ballot this election in Kentucky. The amendment proposed allowing state lawmakers to use tax money to fund private and charter schools. Those who were against the amendment, like Tiffany Combs with Perry County Schools, says this is a big win for students. On the other side, Tim Crawford with Redbird Christian School says relying on private funds entirely can be a challenge.
Today's economies for the world and for particularly the United States, charitable giving is really down, and so there's more and more pressure for us to be able to find sources of funding to be able to continue here at Redbird Christian School.
Honestly, as it is, public schools are underfunded. So I think that this gives us the opportunity to look at how we can make sure that every student has success. You know, address the teacher shortage or universal pre-K for everyone across the state. There's just so many things that we can do to improve success, but reducing public education funding is definitely not one of those.
She says cutting funds would make it more challenging to address issues such as the teacher shortage And he says since before Election Day, the school has been looking at Redbird for new ways to find outside funding. Many counties in Kentucky allowed voters to cast their ballots early, either through a mail-in ballot or by showing up to the polls before Election Day. But Anderson County did something different. They allowed folks to drive through and vote. It came about when Lawrenceburg Mayor Troy Young brought it up to County Clerk Jason Denny. That's when he took him to the city's maintenance garage. A 4-lane operation was created, allowing 12 to 16 cars to fit into that area at a time.
We're running about 60% of our total voters go through the drive-through, whether it's early voting or Election Day, all combined.
Now, Denny says that endeavor did not come without its challenges. He says to host drive-through voting, it takes 2 to 3 times the number of election workers and more equipment than is needed for a standard polling place.
Well, we had some much needed rain push through portions of eastern Kentucky. Some places, especially over towards portions of Menifee County, received about 3/4 of an inch, while some places didn't see much of anything, if anything at all. Here's the latest on live pinpoint Doppler radar, and you can see a clean sweep across eastern Kentucky at this hour. And this is going to get a break for the most part tonight, maybe a stray shower or two, not out of the question. Otherwise, we'll stay mainly cloudy, which is where we are right now. Numbers for today. You can tell where the front went through. We were in the 70s from Manchester down to Harlan. Jonesville made it to 81. On the other side of the front, we made it into the upper 60s. 69 in Pikeville, 67 Jackson, Moorhead's at 64, Irvin's at 64, 68's the current was the high in Somerset. And right now we're seeing cloudy skies, even some patchy fog. Temperatures right now are in the 60s and 70s, low to mid 70s from Jonesville to Harlan, Middlesboro down to Jacksboro, and then you go from Monticello up to Prestonsburg. We're seeing temperatures in the 60s, even upper 50s. So we'll stay mainly cloudy as we go throughout the next several hours. Temperatures are not going to move much, really. We'll stay in the mid 50s for the overnight low, and then for tomorrow we'll see temperatures going back into the mid to upper 60s. We'll get a break from the rain tomorrow, but rain chances will pick up again just in time for the weekend. Details on the first alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
Eric, thank you. Today, a state senator presented research on domestic violence protective order cases in Kentucky before the Interim Joint Committee on Judiciary. Senator Cassie Chambers Armstrong says her data was collected in 101 courtrooms across 76 of Kentucky's counties. As Samantha Valentino shows us, the numbers show a stark difference in some areas of resources between urban and rural parts of the Commonwealth.
In her research on domestic violence protective order cases in Kentucky, Senator Cassie Chambers Armstrong says she hopes to answer a few questions.
Where are we under-resourcing our different types of systems? And ultimately, at the end of the day, what can we do to support survivors of domestic violence and make sure that they can navigate the court system? And all these laws we pass to support survivors mean something because people can utilize the courts for relief.
The data shows some disparities between urban and rural counties.
We did see less representation in rural areas, less access to information about supportive services in rural areas, and some key differences in what those dockets look like and how those dockets operate across the state.
Aubrey Gerard, an attorney with the Nest, says the data highlights a need for wraparound services across urban and rural communities, a need she says she's witnessed firsthand.
I gave legal advice and representation to 309 people in the year of 2023, and I was physically able to be in court for 98 of those people.
Those people have been in both urban and rural counties. Gerard says while her clients in urban areas often struggle finding access to resources such as shelters, the pool of options is much smaller for those in rural areas.
The only thing I can give them is, well, there's resources over here in the urban county. You can come over here. Well, can they? Do they have a car? Does the aggressor let them drive their car?
When it comes to access to legal aid, Senator Chambers' data found that people in rural areas on average had to travel farther than those in urban areas.
For urban folks, those resources were about 17 minutes from their house. In rural cases, for our rural petitioners, they had to travel almost an hour to get to a legal aid office. And you can think about all the ways that that creates a barrier to folks even initiating the protective order process.
In Frankfort, Samantha Valentino, WYMT.
Senator Armstrong says she does not have any legislation drafted based on the data she presented today, but she hopes it will spark a conversation about the areas the state can improve to support survivors of domestic violence. Some people in a southern Kentucky community say they have been without water for several days. It's unclear what caused the problem. At first, officials in Livingston were blaming a former administration for not paying a bill to the water supplier. But now others are saying there may have been a different reason. Despite the cause, as WYMT's Phil Pendleton reports, the main concern for some folks is that nothing is coming out of their faucets.
There's plenty of water to be treated in this lake, the source for parts of Laurel County and Livingston.
We pay our water bills, but the city can't pay you there. There's something wrong somewhere.
That allegation was also shared by 2 Rockcastle County officials, and it was also indicated by a Livingston Facebook post that's now been taken down, blaming previous administrations for not paying the water supplier.
To the tune of $6,000 a payment. So where's that money? And so, I mean, it's no different. You know, if I get 2 months behind on my water bill, you're going to shut it off.
But today, the city of Livingston started blaming Kentucky American Water for the water outage.
A spokesperson for Kentucky American Water tells me that they did turn off some pumps in this area, but that was simply because there was no water going through them, and they had to do that to not damage their equipment. Kentucky American Water tells me that this issue is solely between the city of Livingston and its water supplier, the Wood Creek Water District.
Livingston's mayor did not want to go on camera, but continues to blame Kentucky American. Regardless of who's at fault, people just want their water to flow and answers for why it isn't.
Yeah, if it's summertime, we go down to the creek, you know, we can take a bath or whatever in the creek. But in this time of year, like I said, they're giving out bottled water. You just do the best you can.
Kentucky American Water is also giving out bottled water, and local residents say for that they are grateful. The Public Service Commission says they have opened an investigation into this situation. In Rockcastle County, Phil Pendleton, WYMT Mountain News.
A Livingston water customer just called us to say she has been told there has been a solution to the problem for a partial payment to be made, and that service should be restored tomorrow. Hope that's the case for those folks for sure. Well, Governor Andy Beshear had a Team Kentucky update today. The governor talked about various things, including flood recovery funding for one Eastern Kentucky school district. The Perry County School District will receive more than $5 million to help cover additional expenses caused by the July 2022 flood. The Buckhorn School had to be renovated, and a new Robinson Elementary still needs to be built. Governor Beshear says nearly 8,800 Kentuckians will receive training for the workforce. Some of those benefiting will be here in Eastern Kentucky. There will be 219 trainees at Powell Valley Millwork in Clay City, and there will be 30 people receiving training at Progress Rail Services Corporation in Corbin.
All right, take a look at the weather headlines for tonight. On and off rain chances are in the forecast. Plenty of sunshine will be in store on Friday, but temperatures, they're still going to be hanging around normal or above normal for now. Details in a few minutes.
And in just 6 months, folks will need to have an acceptable form of identification to fly on a plane.